Chapter 76. Ogre. It was a monster called the Tyrant of the Mountains because of its outstanding intelligence on top of its powerful strength and agility. Since it was one of the fiercest monsters, they often ended up killing the mage that tamed them. Of course, Eden, which used the monster's power, also had a monster that had the ogre's characteristics transferred. The blood-raving demon. The name, which signified he was crazy for blood, was a really suitable name for an ogre known for its ferocity and madness. Are you the blood-raving demon? Raon chewed his lip. He could feel the blood gushing out from his lip, spilling down his chin. Even though you are a Sieghart sprout, you must have some sharp eyes to recognize this helmet at a glance. The blood-raving demon giggled, grabbing the helmet he was spinning. And I can't determine your might for sure. Did you slay the Green War Demon? Raon's hands trembled, unable to respond. The blood-raving demon was too powerful for his current self to handle. No, it was impossible, even if he combined forces with everyone else. Why is someone like you here? Because I'm the one who gave the mission to the Green War Demon. I never imagined he would die so easily. The blood-raving demon snickered and stood up. His enormous height made him look like a steel tower soaring on the wooden fence. That fabric is called dark. It has a special effect of hiding the energy inside of it. Old man, you were lucky. Your village would have been turned into ashes from the beginning if you hadn't covered it with that. The blood-raving demon kindly explained about the fabric enveloping the Goblin King's magic stone. Well, my turn ended up coming thanks to that. He equipped the huge ogre's helmet on his head. Obviously, it didn't fit. However, the helmet started vibrating oddly once he started using his aura. Rumble. With the sound of something spinning from the inside, the helmet started to shrink in size to fit the blood-raving demon's head. Whir! Green rusty water gushed from the helmet, covering the blood-raving demon's entire body. The ogre's armor, with noticeable muscles at the size of a boulder, started to form. There's no opening. Raon bit his lip. He wanted to attack, but the blood-raving demon wasn't showing the slightest opening. Rumble. Once the lunatic light burst from the helmet's empty eyes, he couldn't breathe for a moment. Raon Sieghart. As he was barely enduring it, wrath burst out from the bracelet. His voice was as heavy as lead. I'm going to be honest. You have two choices right now. Choices? Either you get killed by him or give your body to the King of Essence. Wrath declared solemnly, as if he was merely stating the truth. Those are the only choices you have right now. Bayan Sieghart was double-checking the wooden fence that he had installed with the other trainees. It's pretty good. Since they had used the method learned from the instructors, the fence's durability wasn't too bad despite having been built in a short time. It looked like it could withstand orcs or goblin attacks without much difficulty. The materials mostly came out from Dorian's pocket. It was helpful, but he couldn't understand why he was carrying all that. Sir Bayan, Raon has disappeared along with the village chief. Is that all right? The collateral that was right behind him approached him and whispered. So what? Bayan turned around and asked back. I mean, the village chief might give him some treasure, and if he takes them for himself. That's a meaningless worry. He snickered and shook his head. I'm sure you are also aware of it. If Raon wasn't here, not only us but the entire village would have drowned in our own blood. Whatever he receives or learns isn't for us to argue. And? The collateral shut their mouths, hearing his voice coming from the bottom of his heart. We are all using the name Sieghart. Competing between us in order to get stronger is fine, but there's no reason to fight or begrudge each other when we are outside. You must have realized this to a certain extent already. That's right. The collateral trainees nodded. He is correct. The trainees had been deeply impressed by Raon from the battle against the Green War Demon. Honestly, they couldn't feel any hatred or jealousy against him anymore. It looks like the insects have finally come to their senses. Martha? Bayan raised his head, hearing the belittling voice. Martha was swinging her legs on top of a tree next to the wooden fence. Why are you here? I came to check if you built the wooden fence properly. How is the wooden fence then? Not too bad considering your sloppiness. I guess your head isn't completely made of stones. Get out of my sight if you've finished checking. We are going to finish up here. There's only one person who can order me around. Martha came down from the tree, snorting. As she was about to walk towards Ban, a rustling sound could be heard from the bushes. Who's there? Right there, come out. As Bayan and Martha lowered their postures, a silver-haired girl burst out of the bush. Runan? What are you doing here? Fruits. Runan showed them the basket she was holding. It contained ripe golden apples. Why are you harvesting that here? I'm going to give them to Raon. You can just give him the ones the villagers have already harvested. This is fresher. Runan quietly responded with blank eyes. You act like you're already married. Martha provoked her with cold eyes, but Runan took her basket without showing any reaction. I'm leaving. It was when she was about to leave. Bomb! A thunderous noise, loud enough to shake the earth, roared from the village's outskirts. What's happening? What is this? That's... Ben, Runan, and Martha, who were squatting on the ground while covering their heads, opened their eyes wide. Raon. That's the direction Raon and the village chief were headed. Runan and Martha started to move first. It's an emergency. You guys go and get your weapons, call the other trainees. Yes. Bayan gave out the instructions while following the other two. Bang! As everyone was about to run towards Raon's location, another powerful energy burst out, reaching the village's center. Bomb! A blonde-haired boy holding something in his arms bounced out from between the collapsing buildings. Ha! Gasp! Runan and Martha's jaws dropped, noticing the boy rolling on the ground. Raon? Our Raon Zighart. The boy was Raon. He was biting his lip with an even more nervous expression than when he was facing the green war demon. Runan! Raon called Runan's name and threw the thing he was holding in his arms at her. MMHM. Runan ran ahead and caught the thing Raon had thrown at her. It was the unconscious village chief, who was bleeding from his forehead. Runan! Martha! Don't come over here! Escape this place immediately! His expression wasn't just urgent, but he looked like he was about to gasp his life away. Just what happened? Martha stopped approaching Raon, looking towards the west. Thud! A fierce step sounded like the earth was screaming, and the sandy dust filling the air scattered away. A green giant, which looked like the personification of a mountain, was approaching them. The muscles in his arms and legs were as hard as a lump of boulders, and his yellow eyes were burning with madness. That's Ogre's armor. The man was wearing the Tyrant of the Mountain's helmet and armor. Martha and Runan's thoughts stopped as they faced his energy wave. Be blood-raving demon. The name of the man wearing an ogre's helmet spilled from Martha's mouth. The bloody name made the atmosphere even heavier. There were some cute fellows over here. Ah! Madness shimmered from the blood-raving demon's helmet. Martha and Runan's legs trembled, as if they were going to collapse at any time. Raon! What's happening this ti? Ah! Bayan and the trainees that followed them froze in surprise. Their bodies were frozen stiff from the blood-raving demon's pressure. You are rather slow, despite using Zieghart's name. Ah! Pooh! The blood-raving demon's eyes sparkled yellow. Under the predator's intense murderous intent, the trainees knelt down while grabbing their chests. Pull yourselves together. As the trainees were about to collapse, Raon's clear voice pierced through the blood-raving demon's fear. Whir! Raon's clean energy spread out and the light returned to the trainee's misty eyes. We will be annihilated if you keep sitting there like idiots. Baon. Command the trainees to prepare the villagers. Martha and Runan, keep your distance and prepare for diversions. MHM. Ha. Alright. I'll return right after. Baon ran back while gritting his teeth. Runan and Martha split to the sides while using their aura. Consider yourselves dead if you get hit by his fist. Never fight him head-on, just assist me. Raon spoke quietly, without taking his eyes off the blood-raving demon. Runan and Martha nodded at once. Do you remember what Instructor Rimmer told us every time? We have to surpass our limits. Raon continued while gritting his teeth. Now is the time. We have to surpass the limits of both our bodies and minds. Surpass your limits? The blood-raving demon grinned, then clenched his fist. The red combative energy burst up, distorting the air. I wonder if that's enough. Whir! Raon brandished his sword while relieving his tension by rotating the ring of fire. It was a single strike. Despite having dodged the blood-raving demon's fist, his skin still broke. It was truly an overwhelming power, and endless strength. It would have been difficult even in my previous life. Assassination was a different story, but he couldn't be sure whether he could have won against the monster even if he had his previous life's body. It really was a desperate situation, but he couldn't just resign. He needed to find an opening somehow and cut his head off. But he couldn't find it. As if an endless cliff had become a human, he couldn't find the slightest opening. You are acting as if you were going to attack at any time, but are you really going to? The blood-raving demon grinned, holding his chin up high. If you aren't coming to me, then I'm going to you. He stomped the ground, crushing the earth. Raon's sight was immediately filled with the blood-raving demon. It was a ridiculous speed. Whoosh! The blood-raving demon that approached him at a super speed thrust his fist. Raon slashed his sword towards the fist, the size of a boulder, aimed at his head. 10,000 flames cultivation 10 flames. Revolving sky. The flaming sword slashed through the air, rushing at the blood-raving demon's fist. That's some nice firepower. Along with a delightful voice, the blood-raving demon turned his fist. Bright red combative energy appeared, clashing with the revolving sky. Bomb! The snake of flame that surrounded the sword dissipated, pressed upon by the blood-raving demon's aura. Hup! Raon's eyes were distorted. The blood-raving demon's fists were aimed at his heart after erasing his strike with the revolving sky. Qua! He twisted his sword while screaming. The blood-raving demon's fist was deflected to the side, following the side of the sword. Slam! Along with a threatening destructive sound, the buildings on the right side collapsed at once. Huff! Raon stepped backward, catching his breath. Despite having deflected the attack, his shoulder was hurting as if it was dislocated. I almost died there. A cold sweat flowed down his forehead. If he hadn't managed to read the trajectory of his fist using the ring of fire, his head would have burst like a tomato. He looked aside. Runan and Martha were biting their lips, not knowing what to do. Not yet. Raon conveyed his intention with his gaze. Now wasn't the time to move, but to observe. He needed to endure the blood-raving demon's attacks as much as possible in order to show them his movements before they participated in the fight. It was necessary in order to create a slight chance of victory, as small as 10%, no, more like 1%. Whir! Raon created the fire of the 10 flames once again. The flame starting from the sword's extremity surrounded its edge. Great! It would be no fun if the flame was extinguished with a single punch. The blood-raving demon jumped like a bird, striking with his fist. Using the sixth form of the star combining sword, Raon parried the fists falling down like meteorites. Squeeze! The red combative energy spreading from the blood-raving demon started to press on the 10 flames once again. A powerful fire attribute aura. It's strong enough that I understand why that stupid green war demon was defeated by you. However, that won't work against me. Do you know the reason? The blood-raving demon smiled menacingly and thrust his fist. Of course I do. Dodging the fist with a paper-thin difference, Raon swung his sword. It's your trait. You are well aware of it. That's right. Flame can't cut through me. The blood-raving demon giggled, striking with his palm. Raon barely managed to dodge it, but blood gushed out from his chin at the wind pressure. Something like an aura of flame is meaningless against me, who has inherited the ogre's strength. He was telling the truth. An ogre was a monster that was resistant to the fire attribute, capable of destroying a castle after getting hit by dozens of fire arrows. However, the 10,000 flames cultivation wasn't the only weapon Raon had. Then I can just use something else. What? A blue frost burst from Raon's red eyes. The coldness of the frost. The blue light like an ocean filled the white blade he was holding. Chapter 77. As the coldness of the frost spread out from Raon's sword, the ground started to freeze up in pure white. Ice? Is that a water attribute? Panic appeared in the blood-raving demon's yellow eyes. Using water attribute aura after using a ridiculously powerful fire attribute aura, what's your identity? Why do you want to know? Raon twisted his sword and slashed, shooting the frost gathered on his blade. Huh, you can even use the aura blade. The blood-raving demon thrust his fist while gasping in amazement. The boulder-like fist shattered the pure white aura blade. Even though his full-power aura blade had been shattered, Raon's eyes remained calm. Because the attack wasn't the only effect of the frost. Along with the sound of freezing lake, pure white ice sprouted on the blood-raving demon's hand. This is... The blood-raving demon frowned and glared at his freezing hand. It looked like he was trying to clench his fist and failing. Did you even reach the attribute's enlightenment? You really know no bounds. Without letting down his guard, Raon shot another aura blade containing the coldness of the frost. I can't be careless. His head would be blown away in an instant if he let his guard down because his attack was somewhat effective. He needed to consider his defense while attacking and change his position continuously with footwork. You bastard. Instead of throwing a punch like before, the blood-raving demon rotated his body and dodged the aura blade. Clang! Raon swung his sword, controlling as much coldness of the frost as he could. The intense cold emanating from the blade filled the space. Whir! The ground froze and the atmosphere's temperature decreased, gradually slowing down the blood-raving demon's movements. I'm glad I watched her before. Raon looked at Runan, who was biting her lip. Thanks to having observed how she spread the frost before, he was able to use the aura of cold without much difficulty. Ku! The blood-raving demon moved restlessly to avoid the frost covering the ground and the aura blade that Raon was shooting. His fist, which used to be quick and powerful, was slowing down and weakening. Qua! You little rat! The blood-raving demon screamed and thrust his fist. Whoosh! Raon turned his ankle to dodge the blow and slashed his sword once again. The frigid aura blade cut through the air. Q! The blood-raving demon stepped backwards in order to avoid the frost, groaning. Raon's dominance seemed to be apparent. However, the tension didn't disappear from Raon's deep eyes. He kept swinging his sword with an even more intense pressure than at the start of the fight. The chance hasn't come yet. Huff! Huff! After preparing everyone, Bayan returned to the village with 10 trainees. The village center was in ruins, as if it had been under a magical bombardment. He could see fire raging on one side, and the other side's ground was completely frozen. It was truly a strange sight. Slam! He turned his head towards the thunderous noise coming from the left. Or rather, his head automatically turned before he even heard the sound. Raon, whose sword was surrounded in a blue light, was crossing his sword with the blood-raving demon's fist at a point-blank distance. Aura blade? When did he reach sword expert? Using an aura blade signified that he had reached the novice level of sword expert. The fact that he was a novice level expert at the age of 15 baffled him despite the situation. No, wait. Raon's aura is. Bayan's astonishment didn't end with his aura blade. His eyes became so wide that they looked like they were going to pop out upon seeing the frost rising from Raon's blade. Frost? It was an aura of ice even more intense and sharp than Runan's. He gasped at the fact that he had been hiding such a thing so far. To have an aura of frost and being an expert. What exactly is the height you've reached? The continent's warriors had divided might into different ranks. They were levels that were used regardless of the weapon, sword, spear, bow, and fist alike. Anyone who began to use aura was allowed to be called a beginner. Beginner rank was separated into novice, intermediate, and advanced. Upon getting accustomed to their aura and becoming capable of imbuing their weapon with aura, one could become a user. User rank also had the same levels, novice, intermediate and advanced. The next rank was the expert level, which was when they became capable of discharging the aura from their weapon. It was commonly referred to as the level where they could use the aura blade, and it was Raon's current level. The blood-raving demon was generally known to be at the highest level of expert, or at the master level. And yet, Raon was pushing the blood-raving demon into a corner despite being at the novice level of the expert rank, which was far lower than his opponent. Bayan's heart was filled with passion upon realizing that. Ha! Bayan shivered. Monster! Rather than the blood-raving demon, who was exploding the surroundings each time he thrust his fist, he was more frightened by Raon, who was facing him. It wasn't simply because he was using two auras and had reached the expert rank at such a young age. Swordsmanship and footwork. The fact that he was fighting the blood-raving demon while using basic swordsmanship and footwork that anyone could use was giving him goosebumps. Whoosh! Raon's movements were swift. Like a flower petal riding a typhoon, he dodged the blood-raving demon's fist by using the wind pressure preceding it. That was only possible through a tremendous amount of effort, regardless of his skill or talent, and Raon was a monster of effort. However, Raon's attacks were sharp, but they couldn't inflict any noticeable amount of damage to the blood-raving demon. All it could do was freeze his right arm in frost. There's a difference in power after all. Then, Bayan narrowed his eyes as he observed the battle between the two. Raon was glancing at him while swinging his sword. That's probably because they had been together for over 3 years, he could immediately notice the intentions behind Raon's gaze. He is asking me to help. Raon's gaze was telling him to attack together with him through an opening he would create. He looked around at the sides. Martha and Renan had also noticed his intentions, and were quickly operating their aura so that they could make their move whenever they wanted to. That's right. The blood-raving demon isn't a big deal, since we are Ziegharts. He clenched his fist and gathered the aura from his energy center. He drew his sword while feeling the green wind surrounding him. We are going to save this place. Bayan focused on the fight between Raon and the blood-raving demon, his eyes wide. Since the opportunity could come at any time, he kept controlling his aura while breathing steadily. As his hand was about to be covered in sweat from watching the fight between the two monsters, Raon's sword hit the blood-raving demon's left hand. Crackle! With the sound of icicles forming, the blood-raving demon's hand froze. Do it now! Use everything you have! Bayan had already started moving before Raon said it. Thud! He brandished his sword and kicked the ground to jump towards the blood-raving demon. The same sound could be heard from the left and right. Renan and Martha were running with him. From the swords that Bayan, Renan, and Martha were holding, their auras burst out like the sun erasing the night. The blood-raving demon was grinding his teeth, his frozen hands trembling in panic. We can win! Looking at his panicked face, he became certain. He could win. as they were about to perform their most powerful attack against the blood-raving demon's vital points. Ah! Ha! Bayan, Raon, and Martha raised their heads at the atmosphere that suddenly became heavier. Their eyes widened at the same time. The blood-raving demon's eyes, which had been full of panic, had become ice-cold. Their hearts dropped upon seeing his completely composed eyes, despite still containing madness. Creak! The atmosphere was distorted by the blood-raving demon's atrocious smile. "I've been waiting for this, you insects." Crack! The blood-raving demon thrust his aura-filled fist. The wind pressure accompanying the strike crushed the ground. However, Raon thrust his sword while withstanding the pressure. He pierced the blood-raving demon's shoulder with the icy blue sword. Ku! The blood-raving demon ground his teeth, his gaze a blazing yellow. However, there was no anger or frustration at the bottom of his heart. He was simply filled with interest and curiosity. A genius that will be spoken of throughout the continent's history, huh? Judging from his appearance and skin, he was only in his mid-teens. And yet, he could skillfully handle an aura blade and auras with both fire and water attributes. He was a genius that could become the continent's strongest one day. However, that would only be possible if he could keep growing up as he was. The blood-raving demon looked around. Excluding the monster named Raon, the three other children behind him also possessed extraordinary talent. Slash! Raon's aura blade sliced his chest a little, but his heart didn't waver in the slightest. It was just a matter of course. He hadn't even used 1/10 of his power, despite how he looked on the outside. Huff! The blood-raving demon breathed out hot air from his helmet. He could only smile. The anticipation of trampling over the young sprout sent chills down his spine. Clang! Raon shot his aura blade with excellent timing. Ku! The blood-raving demon waved his left hand to block the aura blade, pretending to be flustered despite being more than capable of dodging it. Crackle! The white frost spread in his hand started to freeze. Do it now! Use everything you have! At Raon's command, Raon, Bayan, and Martha, who were gathering their power, rushed at the blood-raving demon together. Whir! Bayan imbued his sword with wind, Martha was pouring out all the energy of earth she had, and Raon was spreading the frost like an icicle from her blade. The three of them performed their most powerful attacks, using every single bit of aura they had. Whir! Raon ran straight towards the blood-raving demon, swinging his sword burning in blue. Kya ha! The blood-raving demon laughed at that instant. It was the instant where his prey was perfectly caught in his net. Bomb! The entirety of the ogre helmet shone in yellow. A tremendous amount of energy burst out, breaking through the white ice confining his hand. I'd been waiting for this. You insects! The moment the Sieghart's younglings used his opening to attack him with everything they had was the perfect time to sink them into the depths of despair. Rumble! The yellow light that formed on the blood-raving demon's hands exploded. The materialized aura perfectly covering his huge hands was astral energy. A master's proof, the astral energy was burning in his hand like hellfire. Ah! Damn it! Astral energy. Facing the astral energy, which was pressuring the space itself, it was impossible to defend against it without using astral energy in return. The color on Raon, Martha, and Bayan's faces turned from hope to despair. This is the end. The blood-raving demon burst out in laughter, full of excitement, and thrust his fist. Astral energy the size of a boulder was falling down on them, and the children's eyes were filled with darkness. How about you? He glanced at the blonde-haired boy in order to enjoy his despairing eyes for the last time. However, the blood-raving demon's eyes widened. He couldn't see neither despair nor hope in Raon's eyes. Serene eyes. They were simply filled with murderous intent to slay his enemy. Roar! A tremendous amount of murderous intent covered Raon's blade. You aren't the only one who's been waiting for this. Chapter 78. He was already aware of it. He knew the blood-raving demon had already reached the master level, that he was strong against fire attributes, and that he had a dirty personality, one that enjoyed playing with his prey before killing it. Since he was already aware of all of that, he had decided to use his trap to his advantage. It was the only way to win, or rather, to survive. The moment the blood-raving demon showed his true nature, the weight of the atmosphere became different. It was a feeling of a lump of steel pressing upon his entire body. Raon grit his teeth and brought up every ounce of murderous intent that the assassin Raon possessed. Clang! The moment his murderous intent started competing with the madness, Bayan, Runan, and Martha, who were at a lower level, were bounced out. That was also according to plan. However, the most important things still remained. After making them escape the blood-raving demon's astral energy, he twisted his body so suddenly that his waist seemed to snap. Slum! A huge fist, surrounded by astral energy, grazed his left shoulder. Crack! Crack! It wasn't a direct hit. Even though it had only brushed past him, the bone on his left arm was crushed. Raon grit his teeth to the breaking point. He endured the pain with a superhuman perseverance and brandished his sword with his right arm. He gathered all his energy and murderous intent at the end of his sword. You bastard! He thrust the blade of frost towards the blood-raving demon's heart as the man glared at him in surprise. 10,000 Flames Cultivation, Ultimate Point. The principles of the 10,000 Flames cultivation flowed out through the coldness of the frost. The silver blade was dyed in blue, as if the ice dragon strolling in the sky dwelled within it. Creak! The sound of the blue blade piercing the ogre's armor resounded in his ears. Ugh! However, Raon's eyes didn't grow any brighter. They only got darker, like the glow of the setting sun. Damn it! Because the ultimate technique that would even pierce the steel was unable to penetrate any further, blocked by the leather. Ha! Amazing! The blood-raving demon coughed out his admiration, a sword piercing his chest. I never expected you to use my trap instead. I really almost died right there. However, the blue sword piercing his chest shattered with a clank. Coo! Raon was sent flying, coughing up blood. You were too weak. The difference in power between us isn't something you can make up for with that kind of surprise attack. The blade thrust into the blood-raving demon's chest came out like a pebble stuck in the mud. His muscles stopped it. Raon bit his blood-stained lip. The blood-raving demon had stopped his attack by enhancing his skin and muscles. It was a method befitting a monster that had reached the level of a master, one that could control his entire body as he wanted. Gasp! Gasp! Raon stepped backwards and looked at Ben, Runan, Martha, and the other remaining trainees. The plan is over. Run, everyone! Raon? Hey, you! We can't win. There was no way they could win, no matter what they did in their current state. Since the plan had failed, the fight was over. All that was left to do was run away. I command you as the top trainee. Run away with the villagers. The house's reinforcement that Krine requested is coming. Run to the west. Raon. I'll also. Bayan Zighart. Raon shouted Bayan's name, who was about to stand up with trembling lips. Is dying in vain right here the Zieghart's way you told me about before? If that's the case, then fight alongside me here. If not, then do what you must. Aye. Bayan bit his lip. The consideration was long, but the decision was short. We're retreating. Everyone, back off. Focus on running away. He ended up tearing his lip, turning around to run towards the village. The trainees shed tears and ran away, following Bayan. Raon, who was coughing up blood while grabbing his arm, was reflected in Runan's purple eyes. As As she was about to dash at the blood-raving demon while screaming, Martha struck her neck. With a thud, Raon lost consciousness and fell on the ground. Martha carried her on her back and looked at Raon. She was asking him if there really was no way. Thud. As soon as Raon nodded, she turned around and ran in the direction Ban went. Thank you. Raon smiled faintly. He was glad they were able to understand. Wham! The blood-raving demon pulled the sword stuck on his chest out completely. Blood was flowing out, but it soon stopped and the wound started to close. It was the effect of Ogre's stamina and regeneration. Damn it. Raon bit his lip. The bleeding curse was in effect, but it was completely pointless in that situation. 10% was far from enough to allow him to win, as he wouldn't be able to win with a 50% weakening effect. Do you think those insects can run away? The blood-raving demon crushed the sword in his hand like a biscuit. I've unleashed ogres in the area. They are going to be eaten alive soon enough. No, before that. The blood-raving demon giggled and looked down at Raon. Do you think you can hold on? With that arm and that stamina? Raon didn't respond. He wasn't looking at the blood-raving demon. He was looking at Wrath, who was in his arm. Wrath. It's finally the King of Essence's turn. Wrath squirmed up like smoke. His pressure alone was far past the blood-raving demon, who was at the level of master. Just like I said before, you can't win against him with your current strength. Give me your body. I'll freeze up this entire space, including him. Ha, you are always so delusional. What? It's a trade. Raon's eyes shone as he coughed up blood. What do you mean, trade? You mentioned before that I could make trades with your wrath. I'm going to accept your wrath, so return my body and aura to a normal state. You? Blue coldness burst from Wrath like a flame pillar. You idiot! You'll never be able to beat him at your current strength, even if you were reborn. You won't be able to win just from recovering your wounds. That's my business. Do you accept or not? Coup. Facing Raon's determination, Wrath ground his teeth, delaying his answer. Fine. I'll give you 10 points of Wrath and recover your body perfectly. However, you aren't going to achieve anything with it. Shut up and give it to me already. Humph. After Wrath's snorting sound, his coldness was absorbed into Raon's body. Huff. He grit his teeth, feeling the pain of his skin getting ripped apart by the coldness. Creak. The broken arm and ribs were fixed on their own. Raon's lips trembled at a pain worse than when they broke. Phew. Tears dripped from his eyes before he knew it. It was one of the worst pains he had experienced in both his previous and current lives combined. What are you? The blood-raving demon stood still, eyes widening upon witnessing his arm restoring itself. Huff. Raon gasped for breath. Even the aura filling up his empty energy center felt painful. However, the true pain didn't end there. 10 points of Wrath have been created according to the contract with Wrath. His lungs shrunk like dry wood and his heart tightened. Every single one of his cells felt like they were being stabbed by a needle. UAAA. The pain was one thing, but he felt like his body was being dislocated from his soul. It was the feeling of something sticky and evil pervading his body. Still, his recovery was perfect. He was mentally exhausted, but his body and aura had recovered into a state better than normal. I don't understand it. The blood-raving demon rolled his curious yellow eyes. I doubt you drank an ogre or a troll's blood. How are you able to regenerate so quickly? It's irrational. You won't understand it. How painful it was. Ha! Breathing our hot air, he took another trainee's sword from the ground. Wrath. What is it, you arrogant brat? Since I might die, let's make a bet. Bet? Yes. I'm going to bet that he is going to die. You are spouting nonsense once again. Why, are you afraid? Fine. Bring it on. The King of Essence is going to bet you are going to hand over your body. After hearing Wrath's response, Raon pointed his sword at the blood-raving demon. Come at me. I'll play with you until the sun rises. Huff. Huff. Martha ran after Bian and the other trainees, carrying Renan on her back. Since everyone was running as fast as they could, they quickly managed to catch up to the other trainees and the villagers. What happened? Are we going to be okay? The villagers were walking and running quickly to their standards, but they were way too slow in Martha's eyes. It was something that couldn't be helped, but she became irritated. Damn it, damn. Bun's fist trembled and his eyes shook. He just kept walking blankly, without looking ahead or around. Ugh. Sir Raon. Arg. It wasn't just him. The other trainees' eyes had also lost focus, as if their souls were drained away. That guy. When small swear words and breathing sounds were the only things that could be heard, Martha silently started speaking. He stood alone in front of that huge monster in order to protect us and those people. Hearing her voice, filled with desperation and anger, everyone looked back at her. He is still stopping him, despite his broken arm and crushed ribs. But what are you doing right now? What? After not having done anything there, are you planning to die like idiots here without doing anything once again? That's not true, Sir Bian is also suff. No. Bian stopped the collateral that was standing in front of Martha. She is correct. We have no time to be like this. The first group, watch the front. The second and the third group, watch the left and right side respectively. Control your aura at all times and stay ready to act. Hearing his quick commands, the trainees that were standing blankly started moving to their posts. Martha, since you have the best perception among us, you are in charge of the back. Give Renan to us. Martha frowned but nodded and handed over the unconscious Renan to the collateral trainees. We are going to increase our speed. Since the house's reinforcement must be coming, as quickly as possible. Wait. Martha stopped Bian from speaking, turning her head towards the dense forest on the right side. Bian and the others also followed her gaze in a daze. Swoosh. It sounded like a strong wind rustling through the forest. It was a sound of wind that could have been overlooked, but Martha broke out in a cold sweat and drew her sword. Everyone retreat. Run away, right now. Before she could finish her sentence, the forest collapsed and a green monster over 4 meters tall appeared. Ogre. The brutal monster called the Tyrant of the Mountain stood with shining red eyes. Ah. Martha swallowed. I didn't think about it. The blood-raving demon was a monster possessing an ogre's strength, capable of controlling ogres. It was only natural that ogres existed in that place. We can't win. Maybe they could have if they were at their perfect state, but it was impossible to kill the ogre even if everyone fought together the way they were right now. They were really going to be annihilated at that rate. Quah! Ogre roared and hammered down his huge fist. Hop! Ha! Martha and Bian jumped at it, swinging their aura-filled swords. KRR. The ogre withdrew slightly, noticing the aura in their swords. Whoosh! Once their strength ran out after slashing the air, the ogre ran back to them and thrust its fist. Slam! Powerful energy exploded, and Martha and Bian got pushed back, unable to keep their balance. Coo! Ugh! They stood back up while staggering, but they were already weakened significantly. Damn it! Martha bit her lip. The ogre had an even more monstrous hunting instinct, to be able to withdraw its body at that instant. KRR. The ogre was approaching them, a small amount of blood flowing down its hand. Its mouth was outright laughing at them. You guys leave first. I'll follow you after killing this one with Martha. Bayan shouted, grabbing his trembling right wrist with his left hand. His turn had come. "Yes, Sir Bayan. Quickly." "Ugh." Dorian grit his teeth and turned around. However, another sound was heard before he started moving. Slam! Along with a thunderous noise crushing the ground, an enormous shadow appeared from the left side. A second ogre blocked the trainee's path. Ah! Martha's eyes wavered violently. This was why. That was the reason the blood-raving demon was smiling despite them running away. He had already released the ogres in the area. Everything's over. The atmosphere became even more quiet, following somebody's despair-filled voice. Krrr. Qua. The only sounds that could be heard now were the ogre's hungry roar and the human's scared groans. Don't back down. Bayan brandished his sword, wiping the blood flowing from his mouth. Raon is also still fighting. If we die here, we will be too ashamed to face the one that is still fighting the blood-raving demon on his own. He screamed and drew out his aura. The blue wind raged, strengthened by his determination. You're talking sense for once. Martha chuckled and nodded, surrounding her sword with Titan's aura. I have to go help Raon. Runan, who had woken up, brandished her sword, radiating silver frost. It was a desperate situation, yet darkness couldn't be found in three people's eyes. Krrr. Qua. It seemed the two ogres didn't like such expressions on their prey, as they roared and kicked the ground. The moment the three swordsmen and two monsters clashed against each other. Whoosh! Green wind raged from the center of the forest. Slam! The yellow aura pressed and burst the blue and red aura. Whoosh! Raon was sent back flying through the jet-black smoke. Creak! He barely managed to stop after sticking his sword in the ground. Hack! Raon's chin trembled, vomiting out the black, dead blood. His repaired left arm was crushed once again, and his side was ripped apart. He could hardly breathe because of the pain filling his entire body. You are like a leech. The blood-raving demon approached him, while warming up his solid finger. His increasingly powerful energy wave was bursting Raon's skin. Bomb! He crushed the ground and leaped at him like a cannonball. Huff! Raon kicked the ground and rotated his body. Tick! After dodging the blood-raving demon's fist with a paper-thin difference, he stepped back. Tisk! He clicked his tongue. His broken and swaying left arm was bothering him. If it accidentally got caught, he could be killed right after. Shall I cut it off? He considered cutting off his left arm, since that would allow him to hold on for a little bit longer. But why am I doing this here? My arm has been shattered twice, my side got ripped apart, and my muscles and skin are screaming. I don't understand why I'm fighting against that monster, enduring pain that I didn't even experience in my previous life. Various memories passed by his mind, from the moment of his birth until now. I remembered the words of the person I spent the longest time with, the one I felt the most uncomfortable with, and the one I wanted to apologize to the most. I want Raon to become like those ancient swordsmen of Zieghart. Right. Those were the words. Those words from Sylvia are binding me here. If this were my previous life, I would have run away already. I would have run away from the monster, even if that meant using Bayan, Runan, Martha, and the trainees, even the villagers, as bait. But what Sylvia said. The memories of the trainees that spent time with me are binding me to this place. Runan looks cold and blank, but she's nicer than anyone. She's a girl that has endured pain by herself in order to save her family from a psychopathic brother. Bayan was a rude guy, but he changed quickly like a good child and has started running towards his goal. Martha is rough, but she has a strong willpower and unwavering conviction. I'm not certain, but she seems to miss her birth mother. The other trainees also changed gradually, despite the beginning. It would be a lie if I said I wasn't attached to them. Everything changed a lot. The way they look at me has changed a lot, and the way I look at them has also changed. That's why I decided to stay. Just like Sylvia had said, I wanted to save those that are growing up as Sieghart swordsmen. It's different from when I used to participate in dozens of battlefields, killing hundreds of lives in my previous life. I'm currently fighting against this monster of my own volition. Ha! He burst into laughter. He felt strange, wielding his sword in order to save people instead of killing them. Are you laughing in this situation? You aren't normal, either. I know, right? I didn't think I would be like this. Raon nodded. As he was standing in that posture, Wrath, who had been watching him, silently came up with a distorted conclusion. I finally understand it. What? You are planning to give your body to the King of Essence. You are just buying time right now until those young ones escape the King of Essence's range. So, you finally noticed. Such arrogance from a madman. Wrath's flame shot up like a star in the night sky. The wrath was more intense than it ever had been. Raon Sieghart. There's a limit in how much you can underestimate the King of Essence. Do you truly believe you can regain the control of your body in the short time between I kill him and find your allies? I'm not certain. It's just a gamble. Raon shook his head. Since that's the only way. There was no way he could win against the blood-raving demon currently, and reinforcements were going to take at least a few hours. The only way to survive and save everyone was to hand over his body to Wrath to kill him, then regain the body before he reached the trainees. You've already accepted the King of Essence's wrath. It will be different from before. But I still have to try. He couldn't die in vain like that, with his archenemy still alive. Stop your mistakes. You are currently exhausted both mentally and physically. Your emotions are also agitated. I'll let you experience it. Wrath ground his teeth and stuck on Raon's body. Qua! Raon screamed, unable to withstand it. The pain was at a different level from before, dyeing his skin in black. What? That's your current state. You might be able to stop the King of Essence's possession, but you will never be able to come back once you hand over your body by yourself. Huff. Raon trembled. Wrath was correct, he wasn't confident he could endure the pain and shock just now. Then how? It looks like you finally have a problem. Ah. I got a great idea. The blood-raving demon spun his bulky finger. I should kill your allies before killing you. What kind of face are you going to make if I pluck off their heads, one by one? He turned around while giggling. His thigh puffed up, as he was about to split the ground and run off. No. The trainees wouldn't withstand a single strike from the blood-raving demon. It would be a massacre. Holding out so far would become meaningless then. That was one thing he couldn't allow. Stop. Raon brandished his broken sword. He grit his teeth and straightened his spine. Using the Ring of Fire in 10,000 Flames cultivation to the extreme, he increased his prowess. Look at me. He pointed his broken sword at the blood-raving demon. His hand was trembling, but the tip of his sword wasn't wavering. My name is Raon Sieghart. I'm the destructive king of the north, Glenn Sieghart's grandson and the swordsman that will become the continent's strongest one day. It didn't matter whether Glenn acknowledged him or not. It was fine even if the others didn't accept him as one of their own. I'm still alive. You won't leave this place until my heart stops beating. Oh, mad demon of Eden. His prowess and aura, which were completely exhausted, ignited once again and surrounded his blade. Ha! Ha! The blood-raving demon's yellow eyes reflected his admiration. Such spirit at that age. Excellent isn't a sufficient word to describe it. Fine, I shall pay respect befitting to a true warrior. His energy soared up explosively. He turned the muscle he had amplified in order to run. Haa. He managed to turn his attention back to him, but there was nothing more he could do. What shall I do? He would die to the blood-raving demon if he didn't give his body to Wrath. If he gave his body to wrath, the trainees were going to die, and he was probably going to be unable to recover his body for eternity. Damn it! Misfortunes on top of misfortunes. There was no solution. The blood-raving demon was right under his nose. His leg wouldn't move after exhausting his strength to increase his prowess and aura. I'll remember your name, Raon Zieghart. Raon was unable to decide until the moment he was about to strike with his boulder-like fist. Still. I can't die like this. I still have something to do. Wrath, I'll give my body to. You finally decided. It's time to say goodbye. Wrath's voice was filled with anticipation and a small, unknown emotion. Yo! In the middle of talking, Raon widened. The kind and refreshing fragrance of the wind, one that he had scented countless times after he turned 12 years old, brushed past his nose. What are you doing? Make up your mind already. I'm not giving it to you. Damn it! Why now, of all times? He lowered his sword as he heard Wrath scream. He even closed his eyes. Die! The blood-raving demon struck with his fist. Raon's skin burst from the wind pressure, but he didn't open his eyes. Whoosh! There was no pain. He opened his eyes, hearing the sound of a small wind gently touching a flower petal. He could see long red hair fluttering in the wind and a broad back, surrounded by green wind. The thin sword he was holding was perfectly defending against the blood-raving demon's fist. You're late. Raon wrinkled his mouth, looking at the man in front of him. I'm sorry. I overslept a little. The red-haired swordsman, Rimmer, turned around. He smiled with a face covered in someone's blood. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 79. Rimmer arrived in the vicinity of Cebu villages before the trainees, despite having departed late. He obviously noticed that Eden's hunting dogs were occupying Cebu Mountain, and he had things to consider while watching them. Whether he should get rid of the potential danger, or just keep watching them for the children's growth. Shall I try trusting Raon? If Raon didn't exist, he would have killed all of the Eden members without further delay. After all, they were true lunatics, ones that devoted their lives to their goal. However, Raon was the type of genius that didn't even know his own limits. He had a feeling that Raon and the trainees could reach another level through this mission. I should keep watching. As an instructor, leaving the path that could make the students stronger open was the right thing to do. Rimmer tailed the trainees that were heading to the village, paying attention so that he could move whenever he needed to. And Eden's scout, the red-eyed demon, was also trailing them. I don't think they'll notice him. The red-eyed demon was observing them from far away, just in case. There were some slight signs, but it wasn't something the children should have noticed. However, Raon handed over command right to Bayan as if he noticed something, observing their surroundings by spreading out an unnoticeable aura. That guy is seriously. He was more surprised than ever. Aura perception was the ability to grasp surrounding presences using aura, and Raon's aura perception was extremely developed to a point it could be called mysterious. A hexagon. Martial arts, aura, stamina, willpower, and aura perception. Raon was a gemstone that had all the talents required for a swordsman. Rimmer calmed his excitement and watched Eden's movement. Despite his expectations, Eden didn't attack the trainees. Instead, they threw some monsters at them so they could gain some accomplishments and leave. They are hiding something. It didn't seem like they feared the instructor protecting the children. Instead, they seemed to be aiming for something in the area, and they were avoiding attacking the children because of that. They were afraid of Zieghart reinforcements. It seemed he needed to thoroughly search the area after the children left. Raon didn't make his move, despite having noticed somebody was observing them. He left the village after accepting the villagers' thanks as one of the normal trainees that killed the monsters. Was he retreating? That wasn't a bad choice. Deciding to retreat after noticing the difference between themselves and the enemies was a wise move for a warrior. However, Raon's actions after that completely differed from Rimmer's expectation. As soon as the red-eyed demon left them, Raon revealed the truth to everyone and immediately requested reinforcement from the branch office. After returning to Cebu village, he even guessed that the opponents were eaten after witnessing the monsters attacking the village. Rimmer was amazed upon hearing that. Raon had reached the conclusion that they were eaten, basing his judgment on the observer and the fact that they were using monsters. Raon's brain was extraordinary, on top of everything else. Raon decided to wait, and Bian and Runan drew their swords and dashed at the monsters in order to save the village. That's what children would do. The children that were running in order to save people looked like heroes, true Sieghart swordsmen. Without losing to the green demons attacking them, they fought to protect the village. However, they weren't the ones that caught Rimmer's attention. Raon was. He started hiding his presence as soon as he noticed that an enemy was hiding, and he didn't reveal himself until the end. That wasn't the kind of patience that a 15-year-old could show. He didn't look like a swordsman fighting on the front lines. He looked like a king, looking down on everyone from his throne. The qualities of a king. Just as he had felt before, Raon Sieghart possessed the qualities of a king. The fight between the green demon and the children was fierce, and the trainees emerged victorious with Martha's surprise attack at Raon's command. However, the situation was reversed with the green war demon's emergence from his hiding spot deep inside the forest. Unable to withstand a single strike from the green war demon, the trainees collapsed while coughing up blood. It was only natural. After all, the green war demon was a powerful opponent, one at the expert's level. Rimmer drew his sword and remained on standby near the children in order to help whenever he needed to. Is he still not making his move? Raon didn't appear despite Bian, Runan, and Martha being on the brink of death. It can't be helped. The moment Rimmer decided to act, about to stop the green war demon, Raon made his move. With a precise movement, he approached the green war demon as stealthily as a shadow to avoid being noticed, swinging his sword at his neck. Ha! Rimmer smirked. He didn't manage to cut off his head, but the strike that sliced the green war demon's arm was a polished killing technique. The green war demon kept his advantage in the fight with his powerful combative energy despite having lost his arm, but he ended up dying to Raon's sword, one that reached a whole new level. Ha 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 ha! Rimmer burst into laughter, unable to hold it back. He was really a monster. Raon Sieghart had the qualities needed to become the strongest swordsman and the supreme ruler of the continent. He needed to protect him and raise him properly at all costs. He is really limitless. He laughed and stood up. It was time to do his job. Rimmer got rid of all the red-eyed demons running away from Cebu Mountain after the green war demon's death. He needed to prevent the information from spreading. He returned after thoroughly checking Cebu village and Cebu Mountain, making sure there was no danger left. Raon had woken up after fainting, and he had grown one level higher thanks to the enlightenment he had obtained during combat. He could probably even use Aura Blade. He might even notice me at that point. Rimmer went a bit further, since he felt like Raon might notice his sloppy concealment. Maybe I should return. Since the reinforcements Crime called would arrive in the morning, and there was no more danger left, returning seemed to be a good option. Actually, he wanted to tell Glenn about Raon's exploits more than anything. Well, then. Rimmer returned to the house after checking on the children. As he was headed to Sieghart with light footsteps, a powerful energy exploded from Cebu village. This energy. It was an energy he had felt before, and the intensity of the energy wave suggested it was at the level of a master. Damn it! Rimmer ran towards the village at full power. It was a tremendous speed, but he felt like he was as slow as a larva. His chest tightened each time he heard the explosive sounds coming from the village. Runan, Bian, and Martha came into view as he was running. Noticing two ogres attacking them, he drew his sword. Slice! Using the wind sword, he cut apart the two ogres at once. Rimmer asked for Raon's location with his eyes before their heads fell on the ground. Runan pointed at the village with her eyes. She didn't usually show much emotion, but her eyes were filled with too much. Rimmer grit his teeth and ran into the village. Green demons and monsters attacked him on his way, but he killed them all and made his way to the center. And he couldn't suppress his astonishment. Raon withstood the attacks of Eden's monster, the blood-raving demon, until the end with such a small and young body. His left arm was broken and dangling, his side was scooped out, and he was dragging his leg, but he was still holding his sword. It was an impressive sight, worthy of admiration. At that very moment, Rimmer was certain. He would follow the boy, no, the young king, for the rest of his life and guard him. Whoosh! The sword of his new loyalty blocked the blood-raving demon's fist. You're late. Raon smiled, as if he already knew he was coming. I'm sorry. I overslept a little. Rimmer responded casually. Leave the rest to me. After saying that, Rimmer pushed back the blood-raving demon's fist. Wham! The sight of a boulder-like fist being pushed back by a thin sword was a spectacle to behold. Zeekhart's Sword of Light. It's been a while, Baldy. Despite facing the blood-raving demon's brutal astral energy, Rimmer didn't stop smiling. Instead, he waved as if he had met a friend for the first time in a long time. How are you here? I can't let a baldy like you trample over the cute sprouts. Zeekhart's gotten a lot softer, sending someone like you to accompany the mission. The blood-raving demon threw his punches left and right, surrounded by red astral energy. A terrifying amount of astral energy rained down on Rimmer. Hap! Rimmer's sword, imbued with green aura, slashed diagonally. The astral energy was deflected to the right, like water following a drain. You barely deflected that level of astral energy. It seems the rumors about your energy center breaking, rendering you disabled, were true. That's a false rumor. Change your intelligence source already, you and your helmet squad are still late on the updates. Your balance is broken, no matter how you look at it. The blood-raving demon grinned. It was just an expression of his emotion, but it felt like the whole atmosphere was trembling. What should we do? You thought he came to your rescue, but he is just a puppy who will get eaten alongside you. He laughed at Raon, who was barely standing behind Rimmer. Whether I'm a puppy or a Cerberus that guards hell, we shall find out. Rimmer struck upward with his sword from the right, creating a powerful wind and cutting through the blood-raving demon's shoulder. PSSH. The blood-raving demon's shoulder started bleeding, but the wound closed instantly, as if time reversed itself. Your sword used to be extremely vicious. However, that's not the case anymore. The blood-raving demon kicked the ground, piercing through Rimmer's wall of wind. You've become weak. Your sword can't cut through me. He slammed his fist down while saying that. Clang! Unable to take that attack head-on, Rimmer spun his sword. The green aura spinning like a windmill became a thick shield, but it couldn't withstand the blood-raving demon's astral energy. Shatter! The green aura broke apart, and the blood-raving demon's fist slammed down. However, Rimmer wasn't there anymore. After throwing the aura shield as a bait, he pierced into the blood-raving demon's left side and swung his sword. Slam! Rimmer's precise strike was aimed at the blood-raving demon's heart from the bottom. That's not enough. The blood-raving demon roared and crouched, stopping Rimmer's sword as it was piercing into his ribs. I became even stronger while you were getting weaker. The difference in power has been completely reversed. Tisk. Rimmer clicked his tongue and pulled out his sword. Since his sword might break if left alone, it was the right thing to do. Ka-ha-ha-ha. The blood-raving demon roared and swung his fist. The ground screamed at the even more powerful strikes. How unsophisticated. Unable to face the attacks head-on, Rimmer dodged them through footwork. That's... Instead of the blood-raving demon's violent strikes, Raon focused on Rimmer's footwork. He looks like a leaf riding the wind. Rimmer was moving as lightly as a flower petal riding the wind, dodging all the blood-raving demon's punches. It looked like the completion of his movement that he had used when he fought against the blood-raving demon. Also, the timing of the slashes that he was mixing in between were perfect. If Rimmer had imbued his sword with astral energy, the fight would have been over already. However, even though his attacks weren't effective, Rimmer looked like he had plenty of room to spare. He kept fighting the blood-raving demon at a point-blank distance, as if he were showing it to him. Wait, is he really? Raon's eyes widened. He understood Rimmer's intention from the movement of his eyes. He is showing it to me. He was giving him a combat lesson at that very moment. He must have been out of his mind. Can't you even catch me in my weakened state? Are you sure you aren't going to lose that helmet? Shut up. The blood-raving demon thrust his fist, gaze full of madness. Facing a tremendous amount of energy, Rimmer stepped back instead of rashly confronting it. Slam! A single strike collapsed the village and gouged the ground. The power behind it made him look like a legendary giant. Fight me properly, Sieghart's Sword of Light. The blood-raving demon instinctively chased Rimmer, letting anger control his body. Slum. It was a simple movement, but his impressive strength and speed allowed him to close the distance between them. TSK. I have no choice. Rimmer halted his movement and glanced back. He smiled upon seeing Raon. Since the teaching material has gone out of control, let's finish today's lesson here. You crazy bastard. Watch closely, Raon. Rimmer continued before Raon could even respond. This is the way Sieghart fights, and the level you will have to reach. Rimmer's sword pierced the sky, and his left hand pointed at the ground. Sword field creation. His voice sounded like it was resounding from heavens and surging up from the underworld at the same time. Eye of the storm. The voice resounded like a mantra, changing the world. Chapter 80. Eye of the Storm was the calm region at the center of a storm. It was a calm and peaceful place, where nothing happened despite the wind blowing violently in the surroundings. And that was the situation unfolding in front of Raon's eyes. Both the blood-raving demon's violent madness and combative energy and Rimmer's dark green aura were pushed into the surroundings. A completely windless space. No, it wasn't just the wind. It was completely silent, as if air had stopped flowing, and his entire body felt as heavy as if a lump of steel was settled on his shoulders. The blood-raving demon seemed confused, standing still with his eyes and mouth wide open. He wasn't able to move his body freely either. Whirr! A clear flow protruded into that silent space. It was Rimmer's sword. Dark green wind was gathering on his empty sword, devoid of aura. Thud! Rimmer stomped the ground. His body shot up like an arrow, crushing the ground. The blood-raving demon thrust his fist in panic, but Rimmer rode the wind to pierce into him even deeper. And a single slash. The sword containing the wind itself fell vertically. Slice. The blood-raving demon's right hand was harder than steel, yet it was easily cut off. It fell onto the pitch-black ground. However, the blood-raving demon was a warrior at a master's level. Losing his arm wasn't enough to make him fall. He immediately stopped the bleeding of his right arm and stepped back. His movement was as swift and flexible as a tiger. Rimmer turned his sword to follow the blood-raving demon, as if he were already expecting it. The blood-raving demon tried escaping from Rimmer's Eye of the Storm, but the space was moving along with Rimmer. Upon realizing he couldn't escape, the blood-raving demon came to a halt. Lowering his posture, he focused all his remaining energy in his left fist. Whirr! Whirr! The space was vibrating. Red astral energy appeared as a stream, creating a tidal wave. Rimmer faced the tidal wave of astral energy covering the ground, holding a single thin sword. Whoosh! The Eye of the Storm grew bigger in size, and the wind surrounding Rimmer's sword grew lighter in color. Rimmer swung his sword, the blade surrounded by the storm. Crack! With a cliff-splitting sound, the dark green wind cut through the red tidal wave. Whoosh! An intense light burst out at that moment. Coo! Even Raon closed his eyes for a moment, unable to withstand the light. Is it over? When he opened his eyes, the eye of the storm had disappeared, and the world had returned to normal. The blood-raving demon and Rimmer were facing each other, about 5 steps apart. You cut your strength of body and aura in half and incorporated all the wind around that windless space in your sword. The blood-raving demon's voice was still overflowing with madness and combative energy. That's fine, since sword field is that kind of technique. But how were you able to use a sword field? The blood-raving demon wasn't the only one curious about it. Raon was also surprised at seeing Rimmer using a sword field. I thought those who inherited Sieghart's blood were the only ones capable of using a sword field. As the strongest organizations in the continent, 6 kings and 5 demons had distinct characteristics, but Sieghart was special even among them. They were capable of creating a barrier as swordsmen, and not as mages. That was why the sword field creation was an outstanding ability, renowned throughout the continent. However, those who could use it were limited to those who had inherited Sieghart's blood, and only a small number among them were actually capable of using it. Because of that, it didn't make sense that Rimmer was able to use it, not when he wasn't even human. More specifically, it's not exactly a sword field, but something similar. Rimmer smiled while closing his eyes. Since I'm pretty close to nature because I'm an elf. I see. The blood-raving demon nodded, realizing something. An injured tiger who lost their teeth is still a tiger, huh? Letting out a laugh, he looked at Raon. What a shame. I should have gotten rid of him at all costs, since he is going to impact Eden gravely. I can't let our young king be defeated by someone like you. Certainly, he has the qualities of a supreme ruler instead of an average swordsman. However, don't be arrogant. The blood-raving demon's voice started to tremble. We also have a talent as good as him in our side. I'm looking forward to you fighting against him. The continent is vast, after all. Rimmer murmured that it was understandable and nodded. It's my loss, Sieghart's Sword of Light. The blood-raving demon closed his eyes after saying that. A red line appeared from the center of his body. The body, maintained through aura, split apart. The giant at the master's level fell back. Whirr! The blood-raving demon's helmet was also split in half, and the light of madness disappeared. Ha! Rimmer sighed and sat on the ground. Were you watching? He turned his head around and grinned. He looked exhausted despite having his usual expression on his face. Yes, I was. Raon nodded. That's the special technique you should learn as a Sieghart. It's called the sword field. Sword field. He murmured the word sword field, pretending he didn't know about it. It's a barrier created through pressure and karma, not mana like a magician would use. That's why you've put so much importance on pressure. Yes. Even if you aren't using a sword field, developing pressure helps you exert your power. Rimmer grinned, and Raon nodded once again. Certainly. He might have been a bit different, but Rimmer's training requiring trainees to surpass their limits every day must have greatly helped the other children. If they hadn't gone through the training to increase their pressure, the children wouldn't have been able to fight against the green war demon, nor run away from the blood-raving demon. You are a collateral, but you are actually a member of the direct line. You can probably use it one day. No, you will certainly use it. Rimmer declared, certain that he could do it one day. The experience, achievement, aura, and even the future you've been accumulating. Sword field is created by incorporating all of that. You need to experience many things, and you must learn. He was teaching him despite being out of breath. Everything from the battle against the blood-raving demon until that moment was a lesson. You guys watched too, right? Rimmer completely turned his body and looked far away. Runan, Ben, Martha, and the other trainees were standing in a daze. It seemed they'd been watching this situation from outside the sword field. Raon! Runan came running at him. Her eyes were filled with small tears. That's crazy. This guy was alive. He's alive. The hand Martha used to grab Raon's shoulder trembled, unable to believe Raon had managed to survive so long. Sir Raon. Raon. Coup. Dorian and the trainees came running at him with teary eyes. Raon Zighart. Baan's chin trembled as he breathed out a sigh of relief. I'm really glad. While faltering, he sniffed and turned his gaze to Rimmer, who was next to Raon. By the way, instructor. How was the instructor able to use the sword field creation? I made it. Did you say you made it? Yes. Rimmer repeated what he told the blood-raving demon and nodded his head. There are a few different kinds of sword fields that are passed down in Zighart. Since they are inherited through blood, only their bloodline can use it, but making a new one is a different story. He smiled, telling him that he made the sword field. Then am I also able to use that sword field? Martha asked while stepping forward. Runan's eyes were also glittering. That's a no. Rimmer calmly shook his head. There are two conditions that are requirements for a non-Zighart to create a sword field. Two conditions? First is experience. You need to have lots of experience with a sword field. I've done that in all the battlefields I've led with the Lord. And second is. He gave a look at each trainee before he continued. The talent in a tribute. What kind of talent are you talking about? Martha took one step closer and asked. She was greatly interested in the sword field. Talent in attributes. The power of attribute is necessary for people like us, who don't have Zighart's blood, to create the sword field. I've managed to make it through the power of wind. But I wouldn't recommend it. Rimmer shook his head with a dejected expression. Collaterals and a few vassal families, including the Sullian families, also inherited Zighart's blood. They might be able to use the sword field if they worked hard on it. However, you would need to sacrifice something if you were trying to use the sword field without Zighart's blood. Sacrifice? Rimmer didn't respond. You have a bright future ahead of you. Unlike me, who had no choice but to make my sword field, you should be able to get stronger with your own strength. He included wind in his voice, so that everyone could hear him. Let's talk about this later, and for now. Rimmer took out a transparent water bottle from his sleeve and approached Raon. It's going to hurt. Endure it. He spoke as he poured the water on his broken arm and his torn waist and thigh. It was extremely painful, but Raon didn't groan in the slightest. That much couldn't even be called a pain compared to when he was fighting against the blood-raving demon. Doesn't it hurt? It hurts. But you aren't even groaning. It doesn't hurt that much. Wow. Rimmer snickered and shook his head. It's over, so let's go back. Wait. Baan raised his hand. He had the same eyes as when he was in the training ground. I have a question. Eek? I'm tired, can we do it later? Rimmer gulped, guessing what he was about to ask. No, I need to ask it right now. Where have you even been, that you came out to help so late? It's obvious you've been following us, so why did you appear after we were in so much danger? Not only us, but the villagers were also in Dan. What's that? Rimmer raised his finger and pointed towards Baan's back. Gasp. What is it again? The trainees hurriedly looked back, but all they could see were shaking branches without any leaves. There's no. Where did he go? Baan's eyes widened. Rimmer had disappeared in the short time he was looking away. That guy, seriously. Why did he appear so late? We almost died for real. He was grateful that he came to save them, but the timing was too dramatic. Considering the villagers' lives were also at stake, he should have appeared earlier. Did anyone die? Raon walked up to Baan, grabbing his broken right arm. Fortunately, nobody died. I would have grabbed the instructor by the collar if there was any. Then it's fine. Rimmer must have had his own circumstances. The villagers must have been shocked, but they should be able to overcome it since no one had died. But let's clean up. We still have much to do. Raon shook his head, his entire body covered in blood. Are you really okay? Are you okay, Raon? Bayan and Runan asked at once. I'm fine. Raon nodded like nothing, despite being seriously injured no matter how one looked at him. Raon was recovering his body and mana circuit with the Ring of Fire. Rimmer's medicine was also effective, so his body and mana circuit became even stronger after a good rest. I'm sorry. Bayan lowered his head. His drooping hand was trembling. You had to step up because my decision was made too late, yet I almost got everyone killed. I don't think I'm fit to lead anyone. You look like you are about to die from a single mistake. If you realized your problem, develop your decision-making and strength together. Or you could just give up on everything if you aren't confident. No, I'll do it. I'm going to gain judgment and strength that won't lose in any situation. I promise this to you, the one that saved my life. That's good. Raon waved his uninjured left hand. I would have punched him if he apologized for being unable to help me. He liked that he apologized for not running away immediately, instead of not fighting against the blood-raving demon together. Since Bayan was still a child, he would be able to improve a lot more in the future. Runan, you're the same. You should have run away back then instead of trying to help me. Don't wanna. Runan shook her head with an unusually sullen face. If it's an opponent you can't win against. Don't wanna. It's dangerous. Don't wanna. No, listen to me first. I won't listen. I'm going to help. She covered her ears and shook her head while saying that. I'm going to get stronger. I'm definitely going to get stronger and fight alongside you. Ha! The silliness drew a bitter smile from him. However, his heart felt warm. He could feel the sincerity in her words when she said she would get stronger and help him. It was a difficult mission, one where he got injured a lot, but he was happy that he got to learn a lot about emotions. Raon looked at Martha. She seemed to be thinking about something, her deep gaze was directed at him. It's over. Let's return. He waved his hand at the trainees, who were still standing around dumbfounded. He could see people running at them from the darkness. They were the Sieghart reinforcements that Krine went to call. His mind grew relaxed because everything was really over. You've won the bet against Wrath. The reward is being distributed. When he was thinking he wanted to rest, a blue window appeared in front of his eyes. Ha! Ha!